Hello, we're delighted to present a new article in a series of articles, a research agenda about the relations between politics and pandemics. This new article is coming out with political geography, and the title is Geographical Analysis of Political Epidemiology, Spatial Quantification of Simultaneity Between Politics and Pandemics. We basically ask two questions that complement each other to present simultaneous relations between politics and pandemics. The first question is, did politics influence the spread of COVID-19? And in short, our answer is yes. And the second question is, did Trump lose the 2020 elections because of COVID? Or in other words, did COVID influence politics? And our answer here is not really.
The COVID-19 pandemic during 2020 and the fact that the presidential elections occurred that same year provide researchers with an exceptional opportunity to delve into the much debated relations between political behavior and the pandemic. By most counts, the world of politics and the world of epidemics are distinct realms. The analytical edge we have in understanding the links between them stems from the fact that both the pandemic and the political behavior associated with it can be broken down spatially to different geographic regions. It is the spatial aspect that determines both. For politics, spatial variables determine how votes are counted. And in epidemiology, spatial variables are critical for the spread of the disease and the host of its implications and associated policies. Lockdowns and stay-at-home orders, for instance, may be national, but for the most part are determined regionally. Links between pandemics and the political behavior could run both ways, though. Politics may influence the pandemic, and the pandemic may influence politics. In the politics on pandemic's effect, in times of COVID-19, mobility was a massive behavioral referendum on government actions. Mobility taps the key issue at the interface of citizen and state during COVID-19 crisis, the extent to which people were allowed to physically move from place to place. Abiding by remaining place orders diminishes the likelihood of spreading the disease. Conversely, when people leave their homes, the disease is more likely to spread. Likewise, for the pandemic on politics effect, the pandemic with its human, social, economic, and health ramifications may have an impact on the political world, and specifically on political behavior in the form of voting. We capitalize on spatial quantifications to untangle simultaneity between politics and pandemics, using county as the basic geographic unit. We use big data for 250 million US citizens and tens of thousands of county days to study the politics on pandemics effect. For the opposite, pandemics on politics effects, the form of COVID-19's effect on the 2020 election, we use data for 150 million voters.
Our results show that partisanship influences epidemiology through mobility. The article first establishes a link between partisanship and mobility, which we don't show here. What we do show here in this figure is that the temporal shift between mobility and epidemiology. Each panel in this figure presents the results for 1 month between the outbreak and election day. On the horizontal axis are levels of increase in time spent at home, and on the vertical axis is growth rate with a 5-day lag. The size of each bubble is proportional to the population size of the county, and the color indicates the 2016 presidential election results, ranging from blue, most Clinton-leaning counties, to red, Trump-leaning. The effect of residential mobility on growth rate gradually disappeared as time went by. In March, the top left panel, the effect was substantial, with a regression coefficient of 1.41, an explanatory power of approximately 30% of the variance between counties in growth rate. That coefficient shrinks tenfold in April and remains within the same order of magnitude or even shrinks further. In fact, from July onward, this coefficient is almost indistinguishable from zero.
The top 3 panels in this slide present coefficients, which are the lines, and 95% confidence intervals, the shaded areas, of a 2-stage regression models predicting growth rate of the pandemics from the political leaning of a county through 3 different types of mobility. Residential, as in the amount of time people spent more at home. Work and retail and recreation, as in the reduction of people going to work or retail and recreation areas. These were done in weekly intervals between March 7, 2020 and election day. The spatial quantification presented here provides clear evidence for the limited effect over time that partisanship had on the pandemic, at least when modeled with county as the basic geographic unit. As for the politics on pandemic impact is concerned, the initially strong partisan effects on the growth rate of the pandemic via mobility disappeared shortly after the outbreak.
The pandemic's on politics effect, as far as this effect is concerned, we find little correlation, prima facie, between various epidemiological variables and the shift from 2016 to 2020 in election outcomes. Each county on those maps is represented by a bubble whose size is proportional to its population. The pandemic hotspots on election day do not seem to be the counties where Trump suffered the most dramatic electoral losses. Results remain the same when we use a host of other epidemiological measures than the one presented in this figure to gauge the severity of the pandemic in the county. And the results also remain the same when we estimate several multivariate models.
In sum, our spatial quantification offers scant support for simultaneity in the relations between political behavior and COVID-19. Politics had a significant effect on the spread of COVID-19 at the outbreak. The politicized manner by which the pandemic was handled in the US meant that above the economic, sociological, and demographic variables that influenced its outburst, partisanship had an effect. Partisanship, however, does not have a direct effect on the pandemic, but only through mobility of particular types, specifically those that involve human interaction with close physical contact. The effect of partisanship on the pandemic, however, was limited in time and dependent on variables such as education. The effect of partisanship on growth rate, while initially substantial, subsided within a matter of weeks, never to regain its power. As for the opposite direction, the pandemic seemed to have little effect on politics, at least as far as voting behavior in the presidential elections is concerned, and when quantified as the vote margins in county-level election returns. President Donald Trump was an unusual president by many standards, not least by the fact that he failed to win re-election. As dramatic as COVID-19's impact on America was in the year 2020, it did little, our research suggests, to impact the outcomes of the presidential elections that year. The pandemic did not lead to the defeat of the incumbent president. In a polarized era, policy concerns took the backseat and thus did little to drive voting behavior.
We hope you log in and read our article, and we look forward to any comments you might have. Thank you.